So you only travel to visit Devi temples now?
It's not that, but I make sure that I visit the Devi temples in whichever city or place I am in.
Why specifically Devi temples and not, say, a Shiva or a Krishna temple?
Uh, it's how Devi attracts me.
Okay.
She makes me visit. Now I don't even plan travels, they happen. I don't plan travels, they just happen. But if I have to talk about one big transition point that happened, that actually happened in Ayodhya. And if I can narrate the whole incident,
Sure.
and it's mentioned in my book in detail. So I have a travel blog, a bilingual travel blog that I published since 2004 called In Details. And I was on a media trip in sometime in 2015-16 on a media trip by UP Tourism. And there were multiple itineraries that sent us, we could choose from. And only one itinerary had Ayodhya in it. And 2015-16, Ayodhya temple was nowhere in the news. I opted for it, and only me and two other European journalists had opted for this. So just three of us, and there was only half-day trip, and it was clearly mentioned that you will not go to Ram Janmabhoomi temple. It was only meant to visit Faizabad, which has a lot of medieval structures, and then visit Ayodhya and visit some couple of temples, eat a meal in the ashram, and come back to Lucknow. And I had signed up for it, and I was prepared for it. So we first visited Faizabad, and then from a place called Guptar Ghat, which is where Shri Ram took Jal Samadhi. From there, we took a boat to go to Ayodhya. So Ayodhya appeared to me from the waters of Saryu River. It just appeared slowly, the whole city and the skyline of the city, which is a beautiful skyline with all the ghats. It appeared before me. And once I was there, we visited a couple of temples, Kanak Bhavan temple, Hanuman Gadi temple. And then we were in an ashram to have a meal. And we sat down on the floor, three of us and a couple of people who were assisting us. We sat down on the floor to have a meal on a pattal, the leaf. Had the meal. I don't know what it was, whether it was because I was touching the bhumi of Ayodhya or it was spending that couple of hours in Ayodhya. But I said, I want to visit Ram Janmabhoomi temple. And they said, no, this was not planned. I said, I know it was not planned, but I have to visit. Then they said, no, you have two Europeans with you. It will be very difficult to take them. So I talked to them. They said, we are not interested. You can carry on. So I said, let me go it. They were not very willing to. I mean, they had not signed for it. So I said, I don't know, but as I was talking, my resolve was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So I eventually told them, you guys go back to Lucknow. I will visit. If I can visit it today, I will visit it today, or I'll visit tomorrow morning. I'll make my way to Lucknow. It's not a big deal. So eventually they gave in and they said, we'll take you. I said, okay. We went there, we walked through the streets and we reached the entrance. And at that point in time, it was a well-guarded fortress. I have never had such a stringent security check as I had at Ram Janmabhoomi place. Everything was taken. Even I had some coins in my wallet and they said, remove that. Forget about anything else. In front of me, there was this rubble. And on top of that, a tent, a very basic tent. And inside the vigrahas of Shri Ram Lalla, Lakshman and Sita ji. I still clearly remember they were wearing purple shringar that day. They were wearing purple clothes. And I had Ganga Jamuna from my eyes. I don't know where it came from. I knew everything about the place, but the moment you see them, said this is the God we invoke every time we greet somebody. In North India, they still say Sita Ram or Ram Ram. When somebody passes away, we say Ram Naam Satya Hai. And the birthplace of that Shri Ram is like he's sitting in a malba, as we call in Hindi. He's sitting on a rubble with not even a structure around him. Something happened to me. And I was crying. And Panditji was probably, used to seeing this reaction from many people. So he just gave me a reassuring look and he gave me the prasad and I walked out. And when I walked out, I was completely blank. I have no recollection of what was around me. I just walked out. And when I came out in the streets, back in the street, I said, I'm going to come back and write about Ayodhya. I have to do something for Ayodhya. I don't know. I have to come back and study the city in detail. that was just a resolve. I didn't know how it is going to manifest, how it is going to happen. And then it happened in, I think, 2018 that I decided to go and be there. And incidentally, Ayodhya Shodh Sansthan got in touch with me and they say, we'll help you with any knowledge part in it. We will have access to our library and everything. I spent, I think, a week or so there, 10 days there. I studied Skanda Puran Ayodhya Mahatmya, which listed more than 55 odd Tirth Sthalas within that place. I mapped everything. I came back and recreated a map of Ayodhya. And then Ayodhya Shodh Sansthan asked me to, create a book out of it. So I did a book for them called Ayodhya Mahatmya. This happened, everything happened by 2018-19. 19, the judgment came. And in 19, the UP government and Ayodhya Shodh Sansthan organized an event to celebrate Ram Navami, I think. So they invited me to speak on Ram Rajya. So I was there talking to students of Awadh University and all that. This was just the day before that tent was dismantled. And I was there with people like Narendra Kohli ji, who've written modern day Ramayana and Mahabharat. And we saw the last darshan we had of that place. Before that, in 2018, when I visited Ram Janmabhoomi, again, this time I was completely prepared. I knew what I'm going to get, what is there. So I was like prepared for everything. So I went in a very jovial mood and I was very happy studying an ancient place. When I stood there at the same place where Panditji gives prasad, I, in a very lighter mode, said, Panditji, next time I come, tell him that I want to see him in a temple. I don't want to see him in a tent anymore. There was a black cat commando standing there. That place was completely full of them. I don't know who he was. His face was covered. He just turned around and said, Madam, mandir to yahi banega. And I said, you are today's Hanuman. If you are saying it, it will happen. And believe me, it happened within a year. That was a turning point for me, And much later in 2020, 21, I think, I read the biography of Goswami Tulsidas, who's written Ramcharitmanas and who's given us Hanuman Chalisa. I was reading his biography and I was stunned that he had exactly the same experience in Ayodhya. So Goswami Tulsidas ji lived in 17th century, and he was born on the banks of Yamuna, far from Ayodhya. He was a big Hanuman Bhakt. And he worshipped Shri Ram because Hanuman worships Shri Ram. So one day, out of a whim, he said, let's go and see Ayodhya, Shri Ram's Ayodhya. When he reached, by that time, Babri Masjid was built and the temple was destroyed. So he had this shattering moment and he said, I'm going to do something that nobody will be able to forget the name of Shri Ram. And that's when he went back and wrote Ramcharitmanas. And I had, to a very different intensity and different times, I had exactly the same emotion. And thankfully, I read the biography much later. Otherwise, I would have thought that I am imagining this reaction. So this was one of the major turning points. And then there's many smaller turning points at different temples that have happened.